Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see you. If any of you have not had a vacation yet this year, raise your hand. Oh, good, because my guest is going to take you on vacation. Mr. Keating has been all over the world, and that's one of the things he's talking about today. So, can you hear me? Richard Keating is Emeritus in Biology at SIU Edwardsville, has concurrently been a research associate at the Missouri Botanical Gardens, where he conducts studies of plant structure. In addition, he has published natural history guides, including coverage of the Spanish Peaks region of Colorado, and most recently of our local Pierre Marquette State Park. Keating, who's fond of travel, visited the New River region with his son, Phil, in the fall of 2021. So I will present Mr. Keating, and he can let you know what he's talking about today.
But actually, there's some additional stuff that we can get rid of, I think. Let's see here. Can you help me with the, I want to get rid of all the side stuff here, if you can. There we go. Yeah, that's good. Okay. I think it's efficient works.
The mic closer.
Oh, the mic, yes, oh, the mic. Okay, I'm pretty, you can all hear me good. I thank Jennifer and for being able to come here today, and I'm really glad to be speaking in this wonderful. This is a wonderful room to be speaking in and to a great bunch of people. I'm really glad to be here. The trip I'm going to be talking about is I was spent only 2 or 3 days here, as a matter of fact, on a trip which included quite a bit of West Virginia. This is what you're seeing here is a picture of the southern end of the New River Gorge Park. There we go. Whoops. Okay. Right. As you can see, on the map, a little pointer there. New River Gorge National Park is a very skinny little park. It's not all that many acres. It includes a lot of it is park, but a lot of it is nature preserve as well. So it includes a series of little state parks that are along the side, as a matter of fact. Not that you know as you're driving around, but it's the National Park Service turned this into a national park just 2 years ago as a 63rd national park. As you may know, there are more than 400 units in the national park system, including national historical sites and all sorts of things like that in the system. Only 63 national parks with that full congressional approval. On the way there, you come down, most of us would go east on I-64, go through Beckley, West Virginia, which is sort of shown here. One of the things that's worth stopping at if you're going east on I-64 is the Tamarack Art Center. If you've ever been there, it's a wonderful place. It's a donut-shaped building, beautiful modern art with craftspeople and art, which has been vetted by the state as outstanding examples of that kind of art in West Virginia. So it really is an outstanding art gallery. And you can eat there as well. So it's one of the places where I've always stopped when I visited my son, who lives in the DC area. So we come across on I-64, which is there's there's a visitor centers down here, and then there's a whole series of places where you can go hiking and driving up all along, which I'll show you some of as we go along here. Many of you will remember the name Noah Adams, who was one of the early NPR people who was really an excellent historian and person who dealt with a lot of ordinary news issues as well. But he wrote a book called Far Appalachia, which I saw several years ago, in which he discusses a trip that he took. And this map is not all that clear from this angle, but the New River starts in North Carolina, runs through southern Virginia, and then up into southern West Virginia, and then it finally meets the Gauley River up in this area here, and then onto the Kanawha River, and finally into the Ohio River. So it's considered to be a very ancient river, as a matter of fact. This particular show here shows the map of what things were like in the eastern U.S. anyway before glaciation. You can see how the river started there. It's known to geologists as the Tays River. It's pronounced T-A-Y-S, or spelled Tees River, which was it's considered one of the oldest rivers on the face of the earth. Maybe the Nile is older, but this river has been cutting for 300 million years, and ever since the Paleozoic. So really an amazingly old gorge. And it went on up, and the Ohio River didn't exist at that time. It went all the way across Ohio, northern Indiana, and Illinois, and the Mississippi came down there and joined the Tays before going on to the Gulf of Mexico. As you drive toward Chicago, you cross over a 500-foot gorge that's filled with glacial debris, which is why northern Illinois looks so flat to most of it. But northern Illinois looked more like the Ozarks back in the day, back before 200,000 years ago in glacial period. So it's an amazing piece of landscape. When you see, this is a view of one of the models they have in the museum, the visitor center, which shows how you have this gorge when the original Appalachians were flattened down to what they call the Schooley peneplain. The river began cutting at that stage, and then of course the Appalachians rose up and the river kept cutting. So the river gets as high as 1,600 feet in some places. If you've ever been canoeing in the Ozarks, as I have many times in past years, those bluffs there at 300 or 400 feet seem high to you, but their runts in comparison to the size of the bluffs on this area here. So this is an amazing thing. You can see there's a bridge here, which I'll tell you more about later, and a highway goes across the park. And this is what the overall model of the area looks like. It's a very ancient structure. From the North Visitor Center, not far from that bridge, is what the area looks like. You can see there are train tracks along the side of the river because the area, as you might imagine, was they discovered coal there. We think of West Virginia as a coal place. So on the other hand, at this point, as an Appalachian fan myself, coal is, you can pretty much ignore that existence in the parks and so forth that you're looking at, but it's still there, and you can also visit old coal mines as well when you're there. This is the New River Gorge Bridge, which at the time it was built was about the longest, highest bridge in the world. It stands 876 feet above the river. And so that was built before before it became a national park. Oops. Okay. The bridge itself was completed in 1977, and One might ask why you would spend that kind of money and effort to build a bridge across that part of West Virginia. And but if you take a look at the structure of the region, this is what you had to do to get across that part of West Virginia. You had to get on over here and you go all the way down here, down the bluffs, zigzagging around, and crossing this little bridge here, which is visible in one of my favorite pictures, and then going up like this. And if you got a couple of hours, you can get across the area, which we can now do in about 30 seconds by the bridge. So the bridge saves an awful lot of traffic for any kind of commerce or business people had to do in that part of the state. So it's a really major, and in many respects, quite beautiful if you like engineering design. The river itself is full of opportunities for people who like rivers. People fish in it, and people run their pontoon boats. You can run canoes and kayaks in certain parts, but you have to stop by the visitor centers and ask, because there are some places that are too dangerous to run a canoe. It has a really high drop rate, actually, about 750 feet at 50 miles, which is quite a bit of drop, but it's really quite beautiful to look at. From the North Visitor Center itself, you can go down these stairs if you like hiking, and to a place where you can overlook the bridge and also good views of the rivers of the river landscape and mountains themselves. If you want to pay extra, you can walk down this trail here, and there's you can walk under the bridge here. I think it costs about $70 for a ticket, so I did not do that. But there's actually a walking trail underneath the highway if you want to get a good view of the park from that vantage point. One of the iconic places is this Horseshoe Bend. This only shows one part of a very winding, sinuous piece of landscape there. It's called an Entrenched Meander, which has basically, lots of trails in the area. In fact, this is the overlook where I took that last picture, and it's along. There are many trails actually in the region for hiking, which I have not shown you any maps of, but I've got a pile of literature up here if you want to take a look at it later. That shows that, for instance, the trail maps are available at the visitor centers. There's a book on the maps and so forth of West Virginia, of southern West Virginia, which is 130 pages long, which I've got here, all the different kinds of things you can see there. So if you like the Appalachians, of course, I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, and our Boy Scout, our active Boy Scout group that hiked almost throughout the entire Appalachian range on monthly hikes in those days. So I got to love in that part of the world. My son now lives in the DC area. And so I go there to visit him, and we go doing this kind of thing together. So that's pretty much the story at this point. We were there for two solid days. I mean, we really looked at it, which is not enough. Every so often you hear a story of somebody who visited all the national parks in 1 year and set a record. I think, what? What's the point of that? You know, do you have to stop and look at anything? Just go use the restroom and go on right on to the next one. So it's important to take the time that you have so if I go back there, which I hope to do so, I'm going to spend at least a week, and because there's lots of things to explore there, which I'm not showing you here. But I tried to give you a piece of the landscape here to excite your interest. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Keating?
Yes.
Just a comment, in the very near future, Amtrak is going to start having a couple trains every week through the gorge. And they just announced it, so if you don't want to walk, you will be able to ride.
Oh, that's interesting. I've pointed out that there are railroad tracks throughout the area already along the river. That would be fun. By the way, something else I didn't mention, that you can also visit old towns, and some of the towns have little inns in them and places where you can actually stay. It's quite interesting down at the river level itself. That's an interesting point. They wouldn't have to build anything to make that happen because all the tracks are there already. If anybody wants to come up and look later, I've got there's a New River Gorge brochure, the my 130-page Southern West Virginia, and then at the park you can find the Three Rivers Review. There's Trails of the New River. There's a whole series of things you can get there at visitor centers, and so there's more information there that you can get in some other national parks I've been in, as a matter of fact. Any other questions? Yes.
So this has just been a national park for 2 years. How many national parks have you been to?
Let's see, I just made a count recently of all the units of the National Park Service, which are over 400. I've been to about 80, but that includes all kinds of different stuff, like Manassas Battlefield and Antietam Battlefield. These are all national, national battlefields or historical structures. I've been to national parks from Florida to Alaska. Actually, in fact, I've been to the Arctic Ocean twice. Once at the mouth of the Mackenzie River, and once up in northern Alaska itself. So there's, by the way, if you ever get a chance to get into Alaska, there's some amazing places too. You can get a really nice tour through Denali National Park, and if you're lucky, it's going to be a clear day. You get a good view of the highest peak in North America. National parks are really a joy as far as I'm concerned. Yes.
You climb Mount Everest?
I have not climbed Mount Everest. I have climbed Kilimanjaro. That was my first trip to Africa, as a matter of fact, with my late son 10 years ago. I'd like to think I can do it now, but I'm afraid I can't.
I know you've given lectures at many different places, and I think you told me you had 5 presentations that you could give. Are you still giving those at certain locations?
Yeah, I have a series of presentations I've given to the Chautauqua Society, the Sierra Club, public libraries. Sometimes I've got one on the history of postcards. I inherited a collection of 400 1907 postcards from my grandfather, and they're amazing pieces of art. So I've given a talk on that and various other kinds of travels as well. I enjoy doing this kind of thing.
If we wanted to attend those, how would we know that they were going to happen?
Well, there's nothing scheduled at the moment, but I can inform you so that you will be able to pass it on if you like.
Do you have a website that talks about your travels?
No, I don't have a website. Lots of people I know have websites, and I just have not gotten into that yet. I say yet, because Again?
What about Tamarack Park?
Yes, I have given talks on Tamarack Park as well.
You have a book.
Yeah, this is the latest guidebook I've written on Tamarack State Park. It is published by the Missouri Botanical Garden. It's available by Amazon as well. And I might, rather than saying that I'm doing this for my own good, I make no royalties on these projects. This is called an academic press, which means that they don't, that you give them the stuff and they make the money. But one thing I learned, in my first year of graduate school, I was on a trip, a trip to North Carolina to look at the landscapes. I was riding with a professor from the University of Tennessee, and he said, Rich, he said, no matter what you do with your academic career, never ignore the public's need to know. And I've taken that to heart all throughout my career, because that's why I've worked with organizing natural history organizations and trying to do this kind of thing is just to keep people thinking about the environment and the importance of this world and why we should be concerned for its safety and preservation.
Oh, sure. Dr. Keating, one of the things that I've always admired about you is I guess it's more stating the question. I admire about you is that obvious your love for biology, the environment, the natural world, as your academic career in research, obviously, your volunteerism in the community and those same organizations that have that focus. But even though you still continue in your life to explore and to look at all the wonders of the world that we have. But you also, there is an endowed scholarship in Vermont.
Yes, there is, actually.
So that students in the future for many, many years will continue to study biology and the environment of the world. So good on you.
Thank you. One thing that some friends and I have also done is, I don't know whether any of you know the name Dick Worthen. He was on the county board for a while and also one of the great environmentalists that several of us have endowed a campership, the Nature Institute, which several of us helped found years ago up in Alton. Nature Institute has summer camps. This year they've got 15 faculty working with them to put these kids out into nature. And we have, several of us have endowed a campership for Dick Worthen for the people of underprivileged backgrounds to get out into nature. I grew up in North Arlington, Virginia, which is hard to believe now because I could not afford to buy the house I grew up in. But we had like 10,000 acres of woods behind us. And all those kids now who are living in these palace neighborhoods in that landscape. And what do those kids do? We played in the creek, and caught crawdads and picked blueberries in the woods. And these kids are staring at screens. This bothers me a lot, as a matter of fact. And we got to figure out how to get today's youth out into nature. Forest bathing is sometimes called, and just learning how to appreciate what's going on out there. It's an endless sea of beauty.
Dr. Keating, thank you very much. I aspire to do and see as much as you have, and I aspire to get my child off of a screen and to go and see and do like you have.
Good.
On behalf of Tazowski family and the home nursery, we'd like to present you with this centerpiece.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.